We're going to cross over to Parliament, where Mamavi is standing by with Dr. Lord Mensah. Dr. Mensah is a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, and boy, do they have a lot to discuss. Mamavi, over to you.
Coming to you live from Parliament here in Accra. All eyes on Parliament today as the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta comes in later this morning to present the mid-year budgets. After the projections, what are the actual figures? But we want to have a conversation on a lot of other matters. I know that the conversations in the days ahead of today has been about taxes, but there are many more other things to look at. So my guest this morning, Dr. Lord Mensah, is a senior lecturer, University of Ghana Business School. Thank you so much for your time this morning. And also Mr. James Kluche Aveji is Member of Parliament for Ketu North, Deputy Minority Leader, and also Chairperson, Public Accounts Committee of Parliament. We will talk about your work on the committee in a bit, but thank you for making time as well. First of all, can we clear something? Do we know how this presentation is going to be like? Is it a statement, or you're going to move a motion for approval?
Thank you very much. Let me begin by saying that last year, the media review, which was done by the Finance Minister, should have come in a form of a motion or something that we call supplementary budget. Our rules or our law, let me quote a section in the Public Financial Management Act, which is the act which is governing or regulating financial transactions pertaining to the public sector. Now, in section 28 of the act, talk about mid-year review. Mid-year review. And what is a mid-year review? 28.1 says that the minister shall, not later than 31st of July of each financial year, prepare and submit to Parliament a mid-year fiscal policy review. 2. The mid-year fiscal policy review shall include the following information. 1. A brief overview of recent macroeconomic development of government. 2. An update of macroeconomic forecast undertaken by government. 3. An analysis of the total revenue, expenditure, and financing performance for a period up to 6 months, the first 6 months of the financial year. 4. A presentation of a revised budget outlook for the unexpired term of the financial year and the implication of the revised budget outlook for the medium-term fiscal and expenditure framework, if necessary. And the last one, where necessary, 1, plans for submitting a proposed supplementary budget for approval by Parliament. And 2, an overview of the implementation of the annual budget and the budgets of covered entities. This is what media review talk about. We don't have anything called media budget by our laws. What we have is media review. And if that will lead to a supplementary budget.
Okay.
The term used is what? Supplementary budget, not media budget. Now, last year, the minister came in a form of a statement, which, according to him, he's only informing Parliament about the review as I've enumerated.
Sure.
But at the end, it resulted in changes in the figure that we approved in March. That in itself has resulted into a supplementary budget, which must come in the form of a motion for approval by Parliament. So because he came in the form of a statement, Parliament didn't approve anything because there wasn't any motion. There was no vote taken. But the figures that were approved in March as a budget for 2017, at the end, those figures were changed based on the statement he came to present in July. So the process last year was totally wrong. It was against our rules because whatever there have been changes, it amounts to supplementary budget, and for that matter, decision must be taken on it by Parliament, either to approve it or not. Now, it means that if you want to do any review or you want to calculate any indices in terms of the performance and all those, you have to use the figures approved in March, because Parliament didn't change those figures. But at the end, it was the July figures which were used to calculate the performance.
But I wonder what leadership did about that.
Well, that is the beauty of democracy. Minority, we came out with our position. We told the majority clearly. They refused. They used the numbers.
But you know, Parliament is such a strong house.
Yeah.
Your processes are not easily breached. You know, you can be minority, you can be majority, but processes are processes. Well, what's going to happen today? Do you know?
The processes are not breached, but you see, the debate can be won by the minority, clearly, and the whole country can agree with minority. But when majority say, this is the position that will go by, it is their vote that will determine.
Okay.
So
can I ask again, what's your understanding? Is it a statement today? Or a motion is going to be moved?
I think today's one is going to be in the form of a motion.
Okay.
Because they are introducing new policy measures in terms of taxation.
You're saying that as a fact?
Yeah, I'm saying as a fact.
Okay. So we're going to see...
We are going to see some tax increases.
Okay. Let me engage you, Dr. Lord Mensah. Let's look at the general economy based on what was presented back in March. Where are we?
Well, if you ask me, I would say we are in a transformational kind of stage.
Transformational, you use?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, where the economy in itself is more or less, if we should go by the numbers, you know, at the macro front, I would say we are transforming. And it's in a sense that if you look at interest rate, it's showing a downward trend. If you look at inflation, showing a downward trend, all those are favorable, with the exception of these exchange rates that, you know, get into the latter part of the year. But I can justify why, you know, the exchange rate has lifted itself up a bit, you know, within this few months. So, you know, I would say we are in a transformational state. But then the only problem is that most of the programs outlined in the earlier budget, you know, the main substantive budget, you know, has not been realized. And I think looking at a fiscal year being just a year, there's kind of pressure, you know, to realize all these outlined.
Where's the pressure coming from? Is it coming from the IMF? Or is it coming from expectations of the people?
It's coming from the expectations of the people, and the politician also knowing that the people expect this from them. You know, obviously there will be pressure. And so therefore the pressure brings about reaction, you know. And that reaction is what we're going to realize in this budget, you know. And that reaction is going to be, how do we generate money to meet, you know, those I don't want to use overpromised policies that you know, the government outlined for Ghanaians, you know. And if you look at all those policies, it's kind of revenue intensive, because you are running free SHS across the country, a country where about 40% of your capable taxpayers are paying taxes. And if about 100%, we take 100%, and all of them should have children going to secondary school, only 40% is financing these, you know, people. It's quite difficult. And so it's not clear how the financing will be. And I presume that with all this in place, and a lot of initiatives that the government is trying to put in place, if you take the 4, you know, different development authorities that wants to be established, you know, it is clear all these are things that will require money. And where would the money come from?
Are we broke?
Yeah, I would say we are broke. We are clearly broke. It's not just broke. We are broke with all our sources of finance, you know, exhausted. If you are broke and you can, you know, tap into finance elsewhere, it makes life a bit easier. But as a country, we are broke, and all our sources of finance have been exhausted, apart from taxes. And that is why, we anticipate that going forward, this budget will come with new taxes.
Okay, so you are anticipating. Mr. Abaji, you seem to be
so
sure.
Because,
yes.
I'm
that's
not
why you
an
are.
Insider
exactly.
Like
so that's why I was going to say that you seem to be so sure that we'll have new policies, including some taxes introduced.
I'll answer that, but I want to respond to Lord in some of the areas that he spoke about. I think that the pressure which he said as reaction or the demand from the people is actually not a pressure that people are putting on government. They are only responding to what the government told them. You told me that I should vote for you, and then when I vote for you, you do ABCD. I voted for you, you are now in power. So I'm demanding from you what you promised me. It's as simple as that.
But you know how that works. You were majority and now you're minority. So you know that when you're out of government, you see things differently. When you're finally in government, the things that you promised. So you should
Ghanaians
actually be helping the majority of the government. Tell Ghanaians that it is different when you're up there.
That is why, if you are going to canvass for vote, don't promise something that you cannot do. Something that you cannot do. Or maybe you didn't do proper analysis to find out that what I'm promising, I'll be able to deliver. Let me give you one example. In 2017, the total revenue that was generated by government was 36 billion cedis. 36 billion. And how much did we spend? 50 billion. A gap of 14 billion. Where do we get that money from? So, knowing very well that over the years, Ghana has not been able to have a surplus or even a balanced budget. We've always have a deficit budget. So when you are promising, you should know what you can deliver. So that is what I just want to say, that people are just demanding from government what you promise me.
But also remember that you took us to the IMF, right? So there are some obligations to meet.
Listen,
so you can't freely...
For me, going to IMF, it's as simple as that. I want money. Government, IMF telling me that if I should support you with $930 million, I want, tell me what you'll be doing in order to correct the system. And we ourselves, as Ghanaian or government, tell IMF that, look, we will put in place that there's revenue monitoring, we will control the expenditure, we will do ABCD.
That's a very difficult thing to do, especially when you have so many promises.
That is it. We did that. They came to power, they had the option of opting out of the fund. In fact, the fund should have ended in April 2018. They have extended it to what? December 2018. Why? If it's a bad thing, why have you extended it? That is one thing.
I say you're in a good place.
Now let me come to your answer now. I can tell you for sure that government is going to bring new tax measures. Definitely. Take it from me. If it is deleted few minutes to the presentation time, so be it. But I can tell you that government will definitely have to increase taxes to survive. If not, our economy will crash. He said it. We are poor. We can't meet our demands. Yet, the regular demands, currently about 98% of our domestic revenue is used to pay salaries and debt service. What do we do?
So what form is it going to take?
The tax, a number of them. Talk tax will be increased. There's a special 2.5% tax on turnover of all companies. Whether you make profit or loss, 2.5% tax completely. So if your turnover is 100 million, 2.5%, government will take it. If at the end, your total cost of getting that 100 million exceed the 100 million, for that matter, you made loss, you still have to pay that 2.5%. It's coming.
At 10 a.m. today.
The VAT, they are thinking whether to bring it or not. So I'm not too sure, but I believe strongly they will bring it to, they will increase by 2.5% to 20. Yeah.
Dr. Mensah, what will be the implications? We're just using this projection. What will be the implications?
The implications are, enormous. You see, we live in a country where if there's an adjustment in maybe an input to a particular determinant. So, for instance, prices of, commodities on the market or goods and services are determined by taxes that we pay, determined by the source of that particular, good. Okay. Now, if you increase by a certain margin, that market woman, the daily consumption of ordinary Ghanaian on that market, they don't really know the margin that you've increased. So therefore, the price adjustments you go by the same margin, they don't know. Remember, we live in a country where they look at your dress, your skin texture to determine the price. That price is purely discriminatory in this part of the world. So once they hear, yesterday I was on the market, and someone was saying, you better buy your product now, otherwise tomorrow there's going to be a budget. And they read the budget, and once taxes are increased, obviously there will be an as to what margin prices will be adjusted. So I'm driving to how it can impact prices on goods and services. So therefore, the inflation that we're saying that it is coming down will start going up again. I mentioned that the economy is in a transformational stage. We've chalked some macro successes. We are waiting for it to reflect in the ordinary Ghanaian's pocket. And if these taxes are introduced, depending on the margin, it can have impact on prices. So therefore, inflation starts going up. When inflation is going up, Monetary Policy Policy Committee would like to catch that inflation. So therefore, they increase interest rates. So interest rate will start going up. So all the successes that we've enjoyed will start hitting themselves again. So in the end, the economy cannot be transformed anymore. So if you ask me, the option now for the government as we speak is to go back to the drawing board, right? There's nothing wrong for you to promise 1D, 1F, and saying that you are prioritizing it now. So not all the districts will have that 1D, 1F. However, you are going to prioritize it in such a way that some district needs to wait for the input of another district before they can start functioning.
Okay.
So you don't introduce all across board. The same way as free SHS. That brings down your expenditure. So I'm telling you that the only option, if you don't introduce tax, will be to what? Bring down your expenditure. So that the little that you raise, you can finance it easily.
I wonder how or what we can do with
that will not be politically wise. Let me put it this way. That will not be politically wise, but economically, it makes sense to do it that way. If it's free SHS, you prioritize it.
You can't go back on it now. Somebody just made a comment that let's just say all 275 MPs, everybody has a child in senior high school. Members of Parliament are capable, but your children are going to school for free.
I went to Fansburg. It's not a school where you can say there are people there who are genuinely in need of funds to go to school, but not all of them. I can tell you about 90% of them don't need this free SHS. Now, if you take this, the 1 year is gone. I mean, we know it has put a toll on the budget. So what do? Those who are coming in now, it shouldn't be free across board. There's nothing wrong to review your policy. IMF even reviews its policy. If you go to, UNDP, you work for them, you get to know that some policies rolled out at the middle of the policy, they come back and review it to get to know the input, purely finance. If you can't meet it, you start reducing the coverage. You understand? It's very, very key, for the economy. But then, the political manager, let me put it that way, who turns out to be the economic manager as well, will not like to go that direction because it's not wise. Okay, it's not wise because he knows that once he reduces it, obviously going to affect what? Votes here and there. So they don't want to touch that side. Therefore, no, we're doing a balanced deficit of about 6.5 now as we speak in the second quarter of the year. Now, we targeted 4.5% of our GDP. Closing that gap does not necessarily mean that by hook or crook you have to raise revenue. I.e., when you are exhausted with all your revenue sources, borrowing on the international market is not favorable now. Otherwise, we would have gone to borrow without necessarily increasing taxes here and there. You get it? It's a way of financing your deficit. Export, you can't talk about it. You get it? So it's only through taxes that we can generate enough. It's not by hook or crook in raising revenue. that gap can be closed by bringing down expenditure as well.
Okay.
By prioritizing your project, okay, making sure that some of them they cannot all run at the same time.
Okay. I was just going to say that it's easy for you to say that from where you're coming from, but for a politician, it's not so easy to go back on your words.
That is why, as a politician, you should know what to promise. No, NDC told MPP, or we told the people of Ghana, that that policy is not something that must be taken wholesome. It should be faced so that you know who actually needs to be paid for or to be taken care of. I can pay for my ward, but by this policy, if I have a child in senior high, he will attend the school free. I can pay for it. Now, you are increasing tax now, probably to take care of that. So what is the difference? If I pay it directly, or I give you the money, government, you go and pay on my behalf. Which is which? It's the same thing.
Mr. Abaji, let's look at investments in agriculture. We're told that some 7...
One is instant, one is deferred.
It's deferred. But I give you the money. I don't even know how you handle and manage that fund.
I understand.
Yes.
I understand. Wait. But then, you see, if you invest in that child, you are deferring the benefit, okay, of reaping back immediately. That child has to finish free SHS, go to the university, come and wait for some time before he gets job, okay? So for you to settle and say you are reaping from that child is about, let's say, 20 years after SHS. Yeah. You get it? Now, you're looking at empowering the parents, making sure that parents get job, right, instantly. And then they should be able to finance their wards education.
Right. That's right.
You can tax the parents directly, immediately. You get it? For other projects. See, economics is about cost-benefit analysis and then having options and then getting to know which one is cost-efficient, which one, that depending on the orientation, right? It could be social, it could be purely economics. Like I was saying, you can empower the parents, let them get jobs, take care of their kids while their parents are working. You can tax them. However, you did not go by that option. You decided to invest the money directly, right, into kits that you've deferred your returns as a government who is managing the economy for the next 20 years. That is what is happening now in the country.
I want us to look at the impacts of some of the social interventions. We've talked about the free SHS, but we also told that we've created some jobs, some 745,000 jobs in agriculture. How are these things reflecting?
First of all, the jobs that were said to be created by the planting for food and jobs. You know, some traders who were previously dealing in these agricultural inputs, like seedling, this spraying, they were supplied with these items so that the farmers can go and take from them. These were the people that were said to be jobs created. So that 745 or 750,000 jobs created, it's something that I sit here cannot believe it, because a farmer.
Are you looking at yourself as an opposition saying no?
No. If you are a farmer, you've been farming all along. That is your job. So if government support you with what? Fertilizer, and I count you as a new job that I've created for you. No.
Is that what they've done?
That is what they did. That is what they did. It's not a new job. By supplying input to farmers, you count them as jobs created. That is a problem. So those interventions.
In the process of distributing them.
It's not a job created, because those people are already in business. That is the job they are doing. So you don't count that one as a new job created.
What I mean?
No. What they do is that they give it to these people. Farmers go and take it from them. And they are counting those people who are in custody of this.
You seem to be so sure that this is the mode.
That is the mode. That's what they do. That's what they're doing. And people have registered to be part of this program. For example, if you take a particular district, let's say Ketuno, let's say 20,000 people registered as farmers. They are counting those 20,000 people as farmers. There's a portion, certain amount they pay. 25%, which they're increasing now to 50%. Some out of that 20 were not able to pay that 25%. For that matter, they didn't benefit. But they have counted the 20 as jobs created for the fact that people have registered to be part of the program. So it is not something actually that is having a positive impact on the farmers. If anything at all, very few people who have benefited.
Even in your constituency?
Yes, in my constituency. Very few people who have benefited from the fertilizer.
But what it means is that there are at least some people in your constituency who have benefited.
I'm saying it. I'm saying it that few people have benefited by the receipt of 1 bag of what? Fertilizer, 2 bags of fertilizer. Fine. They couldn't pay about 80 Ghana cedis or 100 Ghana cedis. For that matter, that's the benefit they have gotten.
See, Mama, let me come in here. You see, when we talk about job, a job should be something that you can settle in it and know very well that I'm retiring in this job. So consistently, if the country should even benefit in terms of taxes, we're going to generate that consistently for over the years. Now, if we look at these policies that are being rolled out, if you ask me, those policies are not addressing our deficiencies as a country. The reason why I'm saying this is that as a country, we know our export strength. What is our export strength? Our export strength is not contomere, it's not pepper. Neither is it going to be tomatoes or okra. Do you get it? Our export strength is in what? Cocoa. Now, if you ask me, all these policies, they are fantastic, very good. But then, are they aligned to meet our deficiencies? We are in need of dollar, isn't it, as a country? We know that our strength is in cocoa. Those policies that are being rolled out, how many of them, in terms of percentages, are into cocoa? How many of them are into cocoa? Let me ask again. Do you get it? Most of them that has been counted as jobs that we're talking about, you go to the grounds, you get to know that most of them are producing just a mere subsistence, kind of structure of farming, which is questionable because the government is investing in that for a benefit. If it were to be the farmer,
producing to feed ourselves as ordinary citizens, wouldn't that also make an impact?
It has an impact, but we're looking at the large-scale impact. Already we are farming to feed ourselves. My grandmother goes to farm every day. I grew up in the village, we're going to farm every day. We're feeding ourselves. But then we're looking at the benefit, because this is a policy that the government is investing in. So what is the returns that we're going to make? If you're running, the government machinery as business. Do you get it? So for me, I think we need to go back to the drawing board to prioritize our investment. Other than that, we always struggle with revenue not meeting our expenditure.
So, Mr.
The Finance Minister was quoted as saying that the import of food alone costs government about $2.6 billion. $2.6 billion import of food. That could have done something. We have been used to import something else if we were to produce for ourselves and feed ourselves, which means that we cannot even feed ourselves. We import. Why?
But that's not new.
So we should not talk about it.
We've always imported.
If it's not new, so we shouldn't talk about it. Mama V, I want to find out from you. If it is not new, we should not talk about it.
No, we can.
That is what we are talking about.
But I just want us to appreciate that this is not entirely new.
Take that one away from your mind. If not, we will continue to go this way. Let's take it out and see it as a problem and solve it. If we say, oh, it has been there for in the past, it means that we will not make any conscious effort to solve it. How can Ghana, an agricultural country, be importing food? That is a question. Let's work towards it.
But I also know that there's some leakages somewhere. And at this point, let's talk about you as chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee. The Auditor General's reports, the recent one, says that I think over
892 million.
Or so almost. It's just waste, if you like, unaccounted for.
Yeah. Well, it's a problem. But fortunately, the Auditor General now, under Article 187(7) of the Constitution, can surcharge officers who are found to be culpable. So the report has been presented and referred to the Public Accounts Committee. We will not be able to take them now. We'll take them the early part of next year because we have a backlog of part of 2015 and 2016 that we are working on now. So I believe strongly that the report will capture those officers that the Auditor General think have embezzled or through their fault or action or inaction have resulted in certain loss to government. And for that matter, they will be surcharged. And if they are surcharged, we expect them to pay the money back to government. So at the end, it will not be a loss completely. But if we are not able to do that, then it means that almost getting to 900 million Ghana cedis is going to waste. That is also another area that we should focus on well. And my committee, as a Public Accounts Committee, under the PFM or under the Constitution and then the Standing Orders of Parliament, cannot initiate actions on its own unless we receive report from the Auditor General, which we have been working on. And in fact, we have made a lot of progress in that, only that the media is not aware of this. And we are trying to find out all the successes that we have chalked in our review.
Progress in terms of what? Getting monies refunded?
Yeah, exactly. Monies are being refunded. In fact, by inviting an organization, the officers involved, whatever infraction that is cited by the Auditor General, before they appear to the Public Accounts Committee, they have gone to pay the money.
But isn't that like an easy way of making money? Because all I will be required to do
to pay back
when it is found out. So I just wait, go and invest the money. Wait, when Public Accounts Committee
that is why
me,
the Auditor General now will have to look at the specific issue and surcharge the officer. Knowing that you have taken government money, probably you went and invested that money and interest on it. Government will not ask you to go and refund that money without paying interest on it. So you'll be surcharged to pay the money. We'll be doing that in the past.
Without the interest.
Most of the time, just refund the money. Now the new situation is that refund the money with interest.
At what interest?
At the Bank of Ghana rates. Because we cannot use any other rate apart from what Bank of Ghana.
When would we begin to have your work and that of the Auditor General's reports in real time, so that we don't have backlog? We're talking.
We are working towards that. In fact, we believe strongly that next year we'll catch up. Next year, when the 2018 report is submitted by July, by August, September, we'll start working on it. Because we are working hard to clear the backlog of 2015 and 2016 by June next year. Then, as soon as the 2018 report is submitted by July, we'll then start work on it. So we'll catch up with the.
So, Mr. Mensah, just to have a say on this, how else do we block these leakages?
Well, it's about systems. You see, we have all the structures, procurement act, whatever, even to the extent of having procurement ministry, which its job function is not clear. And as we sit here, we don't even know what exactly that ministry is for. We should know that we place something and there are loopholes in there which people take advantage of it. And then after that, when they falter, what are the measures that we put in place in dealing with them? Most of these things that happened earlier, it has been that just refund the money, without any, like you say, just refunding the money and then interest on it is not enough punishment. Okay. But the intention alone, to take the money in a different direction is in itself a bad thing to do. Because if you were to give the money to the government, the use of that money would have been different from what you use it for. Do you get it? So that intention is different from what the government might have for the money.
Sure.
So in the end, you don't just say pay with interest alone. I believe that we should go further. Maybe 6 months in prison. It's a financial sanction. I mean, if you messed up, maybe diverting funds here and there. Everybody knows in the world, globally. I mean, not more than 1 year in prison. You get it? So I believe that we should go further beyond the punishment we give out when people divert funds and then leakages here and there. Now, apart from that, we have systems in place, but then they are not well integrated to check some of these leakages. As we speak now, the procurement processes itself is different from fund usage. So the moment the fund, the usage is well identified, the structure of the procurement looks at, the processes, it has been satisfied. What is it used for? Do you get it? So it's not clear as to how we are integrating our systems that will check some of this leakage. We have all those in place, but how to put them together to make sure that we avoid these leakages, it's not what we want.
That's a problem. Ms. Avaji, there are things you have to do before we see the finance minister. Okay, so at 10, this session is beginning at 10 a.m.
I'm not too sure about exactly 10 a.m.
Oh,
it might go up a little beyond 10 a.m. Because today is Thursday.
Yeah.
The business committee will be meeting from now.
You're a member of that committee?
I'm a member of that committee. I have to be at that meeting
to
program for next week. The House is rising next week, either Thursday or Friday. So we need to program for next week. And after that meeting, before the leadership, that meeting is made up of, membership is made up of leadership of Parliament. Before we can then come. So I believe strongly maybe by 10:30 thereabout, the sitting will start.
Okay. So the minority already organized. You had your own press briefing ahead of this. Would we see you organize one after?
Sure.
How are you calling it?
Post-media review.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether or not, just finally on this, these briefings from the minority, has it got any impact at all?
Well, whatever they discussed is about numbers in the parliament. So they can make their briefing to the public hearing. Then when it comes to decision making, the choice is about the numbers.
Interesting. Ms. Avaji, we will speak after, and especially because you say there's a lot of work that the Public Accounts Committee has done that the media is not talking about it, perhaps because we don't know. So we'll find time and sit and talk on that. Thank you so much for joining us. This is your parliament, so you are supposed to be welcoming us. Exactly. Thank you, Mr. Lord Mensah, for your analysis as well. The place is too warm. So make us very comfortable, then we can pay rent.